Running Clock Friday in the books, also known as the first round of the KHSA football playoffs. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to week number 2. I'm James Collier alongside Jacob Hankins, Spencer Hutchinson, who is visibly angry tonight. I mean, he looks like
I'm
a
not.
postal guy right now.
I'm really not.
You look angry tonight, man.
Dude, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know why. I ate good. I went to Cheddar's. I feel good. I don't know. It was just the computer got me all upset, man. And I was really upset about that.
We don't even have the full moon yet. That's not coming till this weekend.
I know. Melissa keeps garlic in the kitchen in case I act up. Yeah.
Well, across the bottom of your scoreboard or your scoreboard ticker there, all the games coming up that are round number 2, and we'll talk about those in just a little bit. But guys, first round, I don't know that there were really any major what we would consider upsets out there. There were some really good games across some of the classifications. One of those best ones, Jacob, you were there. Greenup County, Mason County. What a game that turned out to be.
Yeah, it was kind of a surprise. Even though I picked Mason County, I really thought that Greenup could find a way to win, but injury bug hit, and it wasn't very good for the Musketeers.
You talk about the injury bug, and Spencer, you talked to Travis. It was the first series of the game for the Musketeers. And Tyson breaks his non-throwing hand thumb, and it just kind of spiraled out of control after halftime.
It did. It was a snowball effect. Grant, nothing to hang their heads out. Finished, 8-3 on the year, I believe. At 4A, and like I told Travis, it's not if, it's when you get beat. You might go all the way to Kroger Field, but eventually you're going to have to play Boyle County, and that's when your season will end regardless. I look at Ashland, though, man. I know we were talking about Greenup and Mason, but Mason County's season will end Friday night. They're not going to get very far. It's not one of those things like, oh man, they're destined for a great season. They're destined to the second round. That's where they're going to go to. So I know that it's a big senior class they got going out there. But shout out to Tyson Salmons, who's a 4-year starter, a kid that put up historic stats at Graham County. Just a great kid, comes from a great family, and sure we'll miss him this time next year.
Jacob, you were talking to me about this earlier the week. Tyson finishing in his season or his career 10,000 total plus all-purpose yards.
Yes, and it's evenly split pretty much. I mean, he's got a little bit more rushing because that's what he's known for, is being able to run, but the throwing stats are right there with his rushing stats. So it's remarkable to see in this area a dual threat quarterback like that.
Spencer, it was something too, and this was something you talked about, Travis. It was a snowball effect that happened right out of halftime, and it was 21 points for the Royals in about 3 minutes, and it was just out of control.
Yeah, it was, and it was a 14-14 point. It was 14-14 at one time, and then all of a sudden you got a scoring update, and it's 56-28 or 56-21 or something. It's like, what in the world happened? Then you kind of can color in the details of what happened. No excuses, though. I mean, Greenup, they just were not great all year. I just call it what it is. They were not good defensively all year. You saw it against Ashland. Anytime they played a really great team, and you go back against Johnson Central, they could score against anybody. They didn't have a problem scoring. They couldn't stop anybody. They just couldn't. They just did not have the guys, and they didn't have the speed at the positions that they needed to be a serious threat in 4A. That's going to get some people mad. It's the truth. It is. And 4A is easily the toughest classification in Kentucky, but you've got to have some dudes other than your quarterback. And, Grant just didn't. They just didn't. So.
And we've said not to beat a dead horse to death, but this is another bad year to be a good team in 4A.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greenup's going to have a rebuilding year next year. There's a lot of questions. What happens to Greenup post Tyson Salmons? I think that's interesting. Do they have to change the offense? I don't think you could run the football as much out of the gun as you did with Tyson Salmons. I think you have to change the whole way you call offense. But the main thing that Graham County needs to be concerned about this offseason is being able to keep the ball between the tackles. Anytime anybody was able to get outside, forget it. It's a touchdown almost every time. You go back and watch their film. They gave up a lot of big plays this year. especially when they played Ashland. A big game had a big bunch of hype around it. But if you watch the film, man, Ashland just had way too much. If you had any speed at all, you were going to beat Greenup this year. They just didn't have it. They didn't have, like I said, they just didn't have the dudes. That's just what it was.
Well, I want to give credit to head coach Travis Jones there. Remarkable job that he's done in his couple of seasons that he's been in the helm there. And again, it helps when you start building around somebody like a Tyson Salmons. But Travis has done a phenomenal job there in Greenup of building a program and putting a formidable product out on the field.
Absolutely. Another thing is I've had to. I'm on my phone right now because my laptop wouldn't work, and we're down to 20%. So if I leave the, the show, it's because my phone.
Technology is not with you tonight.
Well, maybe all this bad luck will turn into a Kentucky win tonight. I would trade that.
No, that ain't
A
gonna
Kentucky win.
Listen,
Stop
now,
it.
here's the
You're a
thing.
hater, bro.
You were talking, exactly, I'm a big hater. You were talking about those scores that were coming through. I was caught off guard. I thought Tiger Hankins had left the game and gone to Ironton.
Yeah, right. And that's what it looked like. It was very quick. And I think that Travis said something like there was a 21-point swing within 3 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the fastest 3 minutes I've seen somebody, or the fastest I've seen somebody score. That many.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm not saying this was a Greenup thing, but you see this a lot. And I'm going to compare this to the Indiana situation. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm going to be a meteorologist and kind of predict the future here for a minute. Watch Indiana lose Saturday to Ohio State, and that'll snowball into a loss to Penn State and a bowl loss. Wait and see. When a team gets that first loss, that changes the way they play. We see it all the time. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we'll see. I know Tiger Hankins don't like to hear that.
I'll be at that
about
game.
he's like his Buckeyes.
No, I'm saying I think Ohio State will win. I'm saying once Indiana loses that first game, it'll snowball into 2 or 3. This is not, you play differently. Like the first few weeks for Greenup, up until the Ashland game, we thought, everybody did. Everybody thought, well, man, this team can really compete with Ashland until they lost to Ashland like they did, and they were never the same.
Yeah.
They were never the same team that we saw the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. They just weren't.
Well, since we're talking about 4A, let's go ahead and stay in 4A. Here's the way things played out. Again, no big numbers here that jump out. Paducah Tillman easily rose through. They'll play John Hardin in the second round. Bardstown, Allen County, Scottville, DeSales, and North Oldham. Spencer County, Franklin County. That's your west side of the bracket. Now, on the east side of the bracket, this is the ones that we'll cover more. Covington Catholic, Johnson Central, Ashland Mason County, Boyle County, Letcher County, Central, and Corbin and Wayne County. And guys, we'll start first up there. Covcath, Johnson Central. I think this is going to be a really good battle.
I don't. I think Covington Catholic's going to put it all over him. You cannot get in these scoring matchups with other teams. Johnson Central has to play defense at some point this year. And Covington Catholic, oh boy, the way that they did Boyd County, I don't. If this was in Paintsville, I'd feel differently. I think it's a multiple score game. When I say multiple score, I say 2 touchdowns. Covington Catholic. When you go to Northern Kentucky, it's a different game. Give me Covcath.
Jacob?
I think Covcath, just because they have more athletes, and just because it is an all-boys school. So
The problem with Johnson Central, James, and you know it better than anybody, they run a type of scheme that if they get behind, they're in trouble. This is not they'll have these big runs, but they run an offense that requires time on the clock. So when they're giving up these big, long scores after another, unless they're playing a team like Belfry or somebody like that, all of a sudden, they're not a team that can put together a 2-minute drive unless they have one of those big, runs. If they're forced to pass, they're in trouble. And I think that they're going to be put in that situation at Covington Catholic, and that's why I like Covington Catholic.
And that was one of the things I was going to talk about is if Johnson Central can limit the number of times that Covcath has the football, then certainly it plays in their fact. They have had numerous games this year. They've never thrown the football one single time. And like you said, they are not a team built to have to play from behind 10, 14 points. They cannot afford to fall behind in this football game because if they do, that falls into the hands of the Colonels, and I think they win easily.
Yeah, I don't. I wouldn't say easily. I'd say 14. And truthfully, it wouldn't surprise me if John Central went up there and won. But like I said, it's not when, it's if. And I know people get tired of hearing that, but it it sucks to have a buzzsaw in your class, and that's the way it was my senior year when I played at Russell. We had Belfry and at the time Somerset, and they were just so much better than everybody. And you just knew going into it that, well, eventually we're going to have to play one of those teams, and it's just one of them things.
I think I'm going Covington Catholic in this pick, but I would not be surprised if Johnson Central can control the game the way they need to if they come out of Northern Kentucky with a victory. But it would take a lot of things to line up for them to be able to do so.
Yeah, and another thing, James, me and you went with Raceland to Fort Thomas Highlands earlier this year. And I know that people can go back on the stats and they can look at the penalties, but a lot of those penalties that were called against Fort Thomas Highlands was when the game was already out of hand. And it looks matched on paper, but it really wasn't. Raceland got smoked by the officiating in the first half. I mean, just silly things here and there. And you say something to an official, like, well, we could call holding on every play. Well, we're not disputing that. It's when you decide to call it that we're disputing. You decide to call it when our team's run down the sideline for a touchdown, but you didn't call it when we were tackled for a 5-yard loss. It's the timing that people get upset about. It's not necessarily when, if you could call it's the timing. So,
All right, Ashland, Mason County. Jacob, you saw Mason County live last week. You've seen Ashland several times this year. Can the Royals stay with the Tomcats?
I don't think so. They have a ton of athletic kids, and they're all healthy. But I just think being the drive here and then being on that field, the atmosphere, I think the Tomcats win by probably 3 scores.
Now, break it down. Tell me about what does Mason do? Are they spread? Are they going to be multiple? What are they going to do mostly?
A little bit of everything. I mean, they like to dump off pass over the middle. They run the football. They can throw it well. They just kind of just do whatever they want. So I think this is the first time since Harvest Prep that Ashland will have kids just as athletic as they are, but I think Ashland's got the upper hand.
Spencer, what's your thoughts?
well, Mason County's going to try to spread it out, but the problem is when you try to spread it out against a team that runs spread and plays against that in practice every day, this is going to be a really long night for Mason County. I wouldn't be surprised if this got to a 28 point game. Ashland's rolling right now. They got over that speed bump of beating Johnson Central, and they kind of just had the car in cruise control. No one's really been a threat to them since early in the year when they played Harvest Prep. Ashland's Achilles heel is up front on both sides of the ball. Can they control the line of scrimmage? And against Mason County, they won't have to do that. This is not a game that's going to be won in the trenches. It's going to be won through the air. And in that case, with LeBron Schrader, give me Ashland, and I think they win easy at Putnam Stadium. And go ahead and clip it, Travis. That's fine. You can put it on there, whatever you want to do.
I was wondering when it was going to get a Travis Skaggs shout out. And again, we
I
love Travis.
I can say
We
that.
love Travis. We like to mess with him and stuff. But
Yeah.
and again, I want to say thank you to the folks at Mason County taking care of Jacob coming up there last week, coming up shooting full game
Absolutely.
highlights and stuff, which those are available on our Cool TP webpage. So greatly appreciate it. But of course, I knew you were going to take a
Mason
shot
County
at Travis
got-
eventually.
Mason County got really upset with me 2 years ago, and it wasn't anything derogatory. I said they had a T-shirt season. That's not even that bad. Everybody has a T-shirt season every once in a while. You know how it is. You go 10-0 in the regular season. Everybody, all the seniors sign a football. They print it on the front of a shirt, and all the moms wear it to the games. I mean, you know how it is. Is that not how it is?
That's the way it works. Everybody loves
Yep.
T-shirts.
I could go down here to Distinctive Tees down here in Racing. I guarantee you there's a shirt that looks just like that.
Guaranteed.
Yeah,
Every
absolutely.
single year. Now, bottom half of this bracket. It's no secret. It's Boyle County and Corbin that's coming out of their games. It's not going to be even close. And the winner of this Ashland and Mason County game is going to have to go to Corbin. And that's going to be a phenomenal game, especially if that's Corbin and Ashland.
Yeah, I still think Ashland wins. I'll double down. I think that Ashland, see, Corbin really gashed John Central through the air. But I think, like we said last week, me and you kind of agreed on this. Ashland is a favorable matchup versus Corbin. They match them with their speed. But the difference between Corbin and Ashland, Ashland has a more difficult backfield to contain. When you got Braxton Jennings back there, when you could put Cam Davis, he's almost like their Debo Samuel. He can go out and catch passes. They can line him up in the backfield. They can put him at a tight end. You know, they can do whatever with him. I don't think Corbin really has a weapon like that. I know it's down there. It's tough to play down there, but I'm telling you, don't be surprised if Ashland don't find themselves in a semi-state championship game.
We'll certainly see as we push forward. All right, let's stay in order. Let's go 3A. So here were some scores on your screen. Union County, Adair County, Hart County, Franklin Simpson, Central, Garrard County, Mercer County, and Cal. That's the west half of the state. Lex, East Carter. Spencer will have the call on that game right here on Kool TV. Russell, Lloyd Memorial over in Flatwoods. Bell County, Lawrence County, and Belfry, Rockcastle County. Guys, let's talk quickly west. On that side of the bracket, do you see any possible upsets whatsoever?
I don't.
Well, it depends on what you define as an upset. I would be surprised if it wasn't Central and Cal. That would be an upset for me. If Central and Cal are not playing at Kroger Field versus Belfry, Lex Cass, somebody like that, then I would be shocked. Yes, that's what I would consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Oh well, hang on a minute now. The people from Hart County are going to get mad at me for this, and that is fine. And I'm not. And it's one of those things where we talked about last week. It's not manipulation of the RPI. They had a schedule set. They played it. Some teams don't play beefed up schedules like others. It's not manipulation. If you go back and look at Hart's schedule they played, though, it's not good. Oh boy, it ain't good though. Compared to some of the schools they're going to have to play against, like Cal, Central, Belfry, that's a potential matchup. But I would be surprised if that team challenged Louisville Central or Cal. So
I want to see Cal Central again. Whether it's
yeah,
semifinals or in the state, I want to see that game. I think everybody in 3A that is not one of the teams that's trying to get to that point would say, yeah, that's going to be a great matchup. That would probably
yeah,
be certainly one that you'd like to see on the carpet.
absolutely. And there's only one team in 3A that does not care who they play, where they play them, and if they play them, and that's the Belfry Pirates. They just absolutely they could play down in Fort Thomas, Florida. They just don't care, and I think they're that good. I think that they'll win the Eastern Division, and I don't think it's close. That's just what I think.
All right, so let's talk about East Carter. They got to take a tough trip. They've got to go to Lex Cath. Lex Cath lost their first 6 games this season, and there were still people
Right,
that were voting for them in the AP Top 10 because of the teams they
right,
were losing to.
Yeah, their
yes.
schedule was terrifying. If you're anybody else other than them,
Well, Lexington Catholic, they played teams like Boyle County. They played LCA, who's very good. There's several teams on their schedule that you really can't get a gauge on because there's not teams of that caliber around here. There's really not. Other than Ashland and Raceland, who's that good around here? I mean, LCA, nobody's as good as Boyle, but you can't really get a good gauge around them. So I don't know, man. I just don't know. I think Lexington Catholic East Carter's banged up. They got a lot of kids that just not they're not 100%. They've lacked the big playability all year. I've talked to a couple of people that's watched film on Lexington Catholic. They said they're not real big, but they're very fast. That's the worst thing that East Carter could see. You want big and slow. That's what you want if you're East Carter. And if it's small and fast, that is a recipe for disaster for East Carter and Lexington. I like Lexington Catholic. I saw some of the picks in there. Some of those people act like there's people that work for East Carter. They're afraid to say they're going to get me. We think you're going to get fired. They're going to pink slip you for picking Lexington Catholic. If you know, I think Lexington Catholic wins it, and I don't think it's close.
Now, the thing I wonder about with East Carter is, can they find a way to slow this game down and limit the number of touches that Lexington Catholic gets. That keeps this game within reach.
East Carter's had a hard time this year with beating themselves. And Coach Tim Champlin, I know that he probably get upset for me saying he might agree with me. I don't know. East Carter at times this year, James, is their own worst enemy. And nobody loves East Carter and more than sitting right here than me. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys. East Carter's not good enough up front to win this game. They're just not. They're just not. So
I
big
love the fact that
playability we saw
Spencer just agreed with himself too, because he gave him a thumbs up and he got a thumbs up emoji on it. That was awesome.
That's the ghost here. That's the ghost here. See, watch it. Do it again.
No,
See
that? Yeah, not gonna happen that time.
no.
Spencer, another team
I
I want to
think
ask you
that-
because you've seen this team, Bell County.
Sure.
Again, no Mr. Football, but man, they just keep coming and coming and coming. Are they a sleeper, even though that they were in the top 3 of Class 3A most of the season?
No, they'll play until they play Belfry, and that'll be the end of their season. Just the way it is. Belfry's just a different animal this year, James. They gave a game away against GRCU. Pull up their schedule, like, oh, they're not that good. They should have beat John Central. They gave a game away at George Rogers Clark in the Pike County Bowl, but James, they're very, very good. And when they're at their best, they're better. I guarantee you, they beat Rock Castle by 3 touchdowns Friday night. And Rock Castle, and there's some people that vote in those polls who put Rock Castle in front of Belfry. And I'm telling you right now, you are going to look like a total fool come Saturday morning.
Here's the thing, too, that a lot of people, I think, maybe haven't followed Belfry this year, and I think that you've talked about this a little bit as well. Philip Haywood is always known for line it up, run the football. That's not the Pirates this year. They will throw it all over the field. But if they need to get down, get between the tackles, and get 3 yards at a time, they can go right back to old Haywood-type football that gets it done in the postseason.
Yeah, and no one's really stopped them this year. They have done what they wanted to offensively. So I just leaned heavy towards Belfry to come out of the East, James. I know that they're going to have to go through some steep competition, maybe even with Lex Cath. I'll lean heavy towards Belfry to win.
Jacob, we've got to get you down to Pond Creek for some coverage at some point.
Yeah, I know nothing about.
Oh, man. He should have went with us down to when Raceland scrimmaged them. And I'm telling you, I got in the car and I looked at Melissa and I said, oh, boy.
I've been down there once.
She goes, it was a scrimmage game. Raceland will be okay. And I said, I'm not even talking about Raceland. Belfry's passing the ball. They're passing the ball. Nobody in 3A knows about this yet.
Yeah. Where did that come from? You know, how many years has Coach Haywood been around, and all they do is run, and then he shows up, and they may win 3A, and he retires.
Well, their quarterback had over 1,000 yards passing this year. I wonder how many times that's happened since he's been there.
That's an interesting number to look up.
Yeah.
Tiger Hankins, there's your assignment for next week.
For next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, old dads might have to go and find him a phone charger real quick because we are slowly.
All right, well, we're going into 1A. Let's jump into there real quickly. Russellville, Campbellsville, KCD had a bye. They've got Louisville Holy Cross. Newport Central Catholic and Bishop Brossart. Ludlow and Newport. That's the west half. On the east half, Paris and Sayre, Raceland Eminence, Williamsburg Hazard, Pikeville Paintsville. Guys, there's only one game in Class A that every single person that's involved in Class A football is going to have their eyes glued on, and that's Williamsburg Hazard.
Yeah, and I think Hazard wins that game, James, which benefits Raceland more than people think. I think that Raceland is playing its best football towards the end of the year. I hate to say last week was more of a bye week, but they pulled starters midway through the first quarter. You got a lot of the younger Rams, inexperienced Rams in the game. They won't have such an easy task this week. You got a team that's coming in that can put some points on the board. It's kind of a Raceland versus themselves. You want to be able in a situation. You want to be in a situation where you control your own destiny. Raceland's good enough to play at Kroger Field. They're good enough to win all of 1A. But if you come out and you come out flat, it might be the end of your season. But it won't be Friday Raceland rolls.
Jacob, that game, it was every person that touched the football running the ball for Raceland, except for one person at night, scored a touchdown. And at one point, Berea was at minus 60 total yards altogether. There was a big 60-yarder that came there late that got them back into positive yardage. But this Eminence team coming in, they've got a legitimate threat at quarterback that can spread it across the field. And that's something that, like Spencer said, you can't just show up and thinking that you're going to walk past this team and head on to the next round.
I like Raceland's defense. I mean, they've proven all year that they can keep the game low scoring if they have to. And I think the defense wins the game for them this week with a couple takeaways, and the offense capitalizes off of them.
Another thing last week, too, Jonah Arnett, Shannon Marucci, they didn't have to touch the football. They got a nice week to rest the legs. They just get they got out, got to play a couple of series on defense. I think Arnett caught a touchdown pass that best I remember. But other than that, you're able to kind of rest these guys for whenever you get into deep November football. And that's when you may run it 50 times a night because that's what you want to do.
Yeah, another game that kind of will be in the back of your head, Paris and Sayre. A lot of people don't think that Paris can beat them, but it wouldn't be surprised if that's a close game in the third quarter. The Pennington kid is a phenomenal quarterback. They're coached very well. They score points in bunches, and they play pretty good defense. Sayre is kind of Paris is kind of a team that you can't shut the door on, man. Raceland a couple of times thought, they were going to just put them away, but they never really could all night. So I think that Paris is a team that could potentially challenge Sayre because that's not a very long bus ride, James. You got to think, 30 minutes, if that?
At most.
At most. So they're not going to be on the bus for long. It's not one of those true road games. And Sayre doesn't necessarily have a home field advantage as, I think you would you had to call the game from the back of your truck last year?
Yep.
So, there's no big home field advantage for Sayre. So,
now, I will say this.
It's not a joke. It's the truth.
They have taken a cornfield and turned it into a sports complex. And it's a beautiful place. And they're trying to expand year by year. But, I mean, you look at where this place was before Chad Pennington came in and took over as the head coach and where it is now, it's leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I still think they're the third best team in 1A. Listen, it's almost like it's almost like a scene off Big Daddy. We need to make the AP voters put earmuffs on real quick. It would be a real shame for Sayre to have to run against Pikeville or Raceland, and knowing they haven't played a team of that caliber this year. No offense to the Bracken County Polar Bears, but they're not Raceland. They're not Pikeville. And so you kind of wonder how they react. You go, let's just say hypothetically, Raceland puts 2 quick scores on them. Are they a team that's going to say, okay, we got to put it in gear now? Or are they a team that folds up? So I think that's a question.
You and I, we talked about this earlier in the week. Sayre has really not been pushed since that Bracken County game back in week 2. And it's something that if something happens, listen, Paris has the athletes. They've got guys that can get out in space. And if Paris goes out, they get an onside kick, they punch one in quickly, they get a 3 and out, they go down and score. Next thing you know, Sayre's down 10, 14 points. How do they respond? Because they've not had to do that.
It'd be interesting to see. I mean, if they get down, their offense probably won't struggle because they throw the ball a million times. But I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see what happens when they get down.
Another key to that game, if it were to happen, is weather. Is it a sloppy field or is it a slippery field? Because I think that plays a big role. And I'll say this, I'll go a step further. I think Raceland, Pikeville, and Sayre are your top 3 teams right now. And there's people from Campbellsville probably cussing me, and that's fine. But it's just one. I just think Raceland and Pikeville, when it's all said and done, either one of those teams will be your state champ.
I will say this about Sayers Field you're talking about is we had a lot of rain down there last year, and that field held up very nicely. Raceland ran the ball 60 times, I think it was, and the field, it wasn't chewed up, it wasn't torn up or anything like that. So the playing surface for a natural surface, especially late November, is a really good place to play. It's very plush. I walked it. There was no issues with it like that. But the big thing of it is, though, if Sayre gets into a situation to where you got to line it up and run the football and get 4 yards to move the sticks and ice out a game, can they do that? And that's the question I don't know that they've answered.
Well, here's one question. Here's one answer to that. Sayre doesn't have anybody on their team one-on-one that can block Lyndon Sammons. That is a fact. So that's a guy you would have to double team in that matchup most always, or he's going to put Pennington under pressure every time he snaps the football. Raceland's linebackers read the field very well. Their secondary never gets beat from behind, very rarely. Pikeville's one of those teams that you kind of just underappreciate them a little bit. You see their record. Oh, they've lost some games this year. Yeah, but who they've lost those games to?
Yeah, they play some really good competition.
Yeah, have they lost any 1A teams this year? No, including a win over Raceland at Raceland.
16-13.
Yeah, a lot of people think that if they ran that back, though, Raceland beat them.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that still could decide the outcome of that game. The Raceland team now, as compared to that game, totally different looking team.
Right, and I think the same could be said for Pikeville. The same team that took the field against Raceland, the same team that took the field against Belfry. So I think it's going to play out, and I really do think that Raceland or Pikeville will be your 1A state champ.
Okay, so the reason I bring up the Hazard and Williamsburg game, because that game controls everything that happens in the East in round 3. Let's say that Raceland beats Eminence. Let's say that, and Spencer just went sideways. There he goes.
I had to check my phone battery. I'm down to 5.
Okay. Let's say that Pikeville beats Paintsville as expected. So the question becomes what happens between Hazard and Williamsburg? So if Hazard wins that football game, Hazard would come to Raceland in round 3. Pikeville would go to Sayre. If Williamsburg wins that game, Pikeville would come to Raceland in round 3, and Williamsburg would go to Sayre.
Yeah, I think that's a win-win for Raceland. You get Pikeville up here that you couldn't ask for a better situation. Either way, I think that's a great situation. And if Hazard wins, you got Pikeville going to Sayre. That's a good situation too, because one of the good teams that's going to be in your way is no matter what's going to be out of there. I think the true winner in this is Raceland.
Yeah, again, and the one thing that Coach Mike Salmon says so much times, when you get to the round of 8, throw them out there. It doesn't matter where you're playing. You've got to beat somebody to get somewhere. And it doesn't matter whether you've got to beat Pikeville, Sayre, Hazard, KCD, whoever it may be. Whether it's at home, on the road, neutral side on the carpet, you've got to beat somebody at some point away. Yes, would you like to play them on your home field in your home crowd? Absolutely. But at the same time, if you've got to load the thing up and you've got to go to Sayre in the state semifinals, you got to go take care of business.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Hankins, you got anything, man?
Not really.
No.
Not this week. Next week.
You know who
next week
he reminds me of? You know the guy who's the color commentary for Harry Doyle on Major League?
Right.
That's Tiger Hankins.
He is so afraid to ruffle the feathers. He does not want to make anybody mad. And that's fine.
He's like a peacock, man.
I'm new to this.
Listen, people will automatically direct their anger towards me, and that's okay. but listen, but the one thing about it, though, they're thinking about me. They're thinking about our show, and they're going to come back and watch next week.
That's right, 100%. Because they want to see. We're like the sports Howard Stern. They want to see what we're going to say next.
Somebody told me that I was the broadcasting version of Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's all it's a big act. It's just to get views, and unfortunately, sometimes
people don't know you very well if they think this is an act. This is Spencer 24/7.
This is Spencer 100%.
Yes. Listen, 34 minutes ago, we would have had to go to satellite radio with this show to get Spencer in here.
I was about to spike the laptop. It was just not good, and it was just low point of the day for sure.
Bad day for Spencer.
All right, so here's what we got, guys. This week on Kool TV, Spencer will be down at Lexington Catholic. That game will be audio only, but you can catch the audio only stream on our YouTube page. I'll be at Raceland with Eminence. That game will be on Kool TV. We'll start our countdown to kickoff coverage at 7:10, 7:30 kickoff, and then we'll be back with you next Thursday. We'll break everything down. We'll get the 8 teams from each class. We'll go Class 6A all the way to Single A and break things down and get our picks from there. Now, just a reminder, after this week, do not pay any attention to those brackets because those brackets reseat. That's when the RPI comes back in, and that's when things get a little different.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the RPI.
Now,
I told Tim Champlin.
Like me and James were talking earlier about why even play a district if you're gonna just let your record and your RPI decide where you play in the third round. So,
well, yeah, I still think that most of the time the best team wins it. It's just sometimes there's a tougher path for the best team, and I think in this case, Pikeville and Raceland have tougher paths than they should. And it's not a manipulation thing. It's just the RPI's broke. It's just broke. So you're punished for playing good teams, but you're punished by the RPI for playing good teams. But when you line them up between the hash marks, the other team gets punished for you playing good teams.
You look at the route that Raceland ran last year. It went to Sayre and KCD and rolled through both.
Yeah. And look at East Carter's schedule next year. They got Raceland on there. Halloween night in Grayson. By the way, they open up with Belfry, who might be the defending 3A champs by the time next year goes around. So I don't know what we're doing down there, but we've loaded up the schedule. RPI will not be a problem for us next year.
Now, with all of the stuff that we complained about, everything that we've talked about in Kentucky, the good thing is we are playing football. Unlike what is going on right now in West Virginia.
That's what I say.
Because West Virginia, man, has got some crazy stuff going on right now. The playoffs are postponed this week. They are probably not going to play maybe even for 2 weeks. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in West Virginia right now.
And you know who it really hurts, James? A team like Tug Valley, who just finished their first season ever at 10-0. Yep. The 1 year in the last 100 years of high school football that the playoffs get suspended, the year you finish undefeated. It kind of reminds you of when Ashland won the 16th region undefeated and when it was going to Rupp and it got canceled because of COVID.
33-0.
There's something, it's just, man, what terrible luck.
Now, and if you're not familiar with what's going on, I'll give you kind of the Cliff Notes version of it is. So there was some reclassifications that happened this year that has affected other things. In the process of doing so, what has happened is you have schools that are filing litigations against the WVSSAC, which is the controlling body, much like the KHSA,
right,
saying that they need to be classified properly for this season. And it has created an absolute hornet's nest.
Yeah, I don't know enough to comment on it, but I know that they didn't. It seemed like they released their classifications really late. I feel like that's something I feel like that you need to do that in very latest in February. So it just seemed like that was really the cause of it, is the late classification, because I think Spring Valley was involved with some of that a little bit, and I think Martinsburg had a player that was ineligible, and all of a sudden they were out. Now they're back in, and it was just I'm glad I'm not in West Virginia.
Yeah, it's something worth keeping close and tabs on. But I've got a friend who is in West Virginia, and he's been telling me all the ins and outs of it, and it's a mess.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing. Could you imagine what our show would be like? My rant of the week, if that were to happen in Kentucky.
Oh, you would need 2 batteries.
Maybe 3.
You would need 2 batteries, and I would need a sensor button.
Yeah, that's one good thing about me is I anytime I feel like I need to cuss, I just write it down. So
he's probably gone through at least an 80-page leaflet tonight.
Oh boy, you should have seen me before the before the show started. I was about to Gronk
That was
strike.
half. That was half of the notebook.
Oh man, listen.
Hey, don't forget, next week we'll be back with you. We'll break everything down as we move it into the round of 8. Don't forget also, if you're first time with us here on Kool TV, hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you see something you like. Hit that bell each time we tweet out material. Will alert you on your mobile device. Tiger Hankins, man, you got to ruffle some feathers.
Maybe next week. We'll see. We'll see.
Spencer,
I might get that next week.
Just keep being 80 grit sandpaper. I wouldn't know anything different.
You know what? It is what it is. It just is what it is, James. Somebody's got to keep everybody humble. And there's people out there that hate me, and there's people out there that love me. But guess what? Both of them are going to watch my show next week.
And the thing I always say is that when you hate on me, you're giving somebody else a rest. So I'm perfectly
whatever. I don't really care. That's the thing. People don't understand. I don't care.
Yeah. And on your screen, which you guys can't see, our Twitter accounts are loaded there. So, you want to send us hate mail, just fire it out there. We love to see it.
Oh, people know that. Listen, overall, I'm a pretty good guy, and I would do anything for anybody. And most of these schools, I have great relationships with the schools and the people out there. But sometimes there's some topics that really just grind my gears, James, and RPI is one of them. Really just gets me fired up. But overall, I think it's been a pretty good year. I can't really complain, like in previous years where I was just constantly ranting. But I think that this year has been a pretty clean year for the most part.
I would agree with that. Of course, everybody knows my feeling on RPI as well. I've been very openly about it as well. It's garbage.
Right.
But, hey, that's for another show. Guys, great show this week. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
For Jakob Hankins and Spencer Hutchinson, I'm James Collier. We'll talk to you next week right here. Football as we go into round 3 of the playoffs. We'll talk about it next week right here on Kool TV.